Hey there, welcome back. I wasn't originally going to film anything with this particular 4L60E. I was just going to tear it down, inspect it so I can get back to the customer, let him know, what he's going to be into it for, what that final number is going to be. But started going through it and saw a few things that I think that, might be of interest to viewers. So pulled the camera out and here we are. So we have the trans partially apart. You'll notice right away, just looking at the case and reverse input drum sitting on the bench there, that the return spring is not in the drum. So snap ring and return spring are kind of riding the input shaft, and it just popped out. So obviously that's not good, or at least that's not how things are supposed to be. So anyway, let me give you a little bit more context about this unit. Customer brought it in, and basically he purchased it from somebody that was selling like a complete engine, transmission, harness, computer package. Apparently the engine was built to around 650, 700 horsepower, somewhere in there. It was a 6.2, and the this 4L80 was apparently built up to handle 1,000 horsepower. Yeah. So the drivability symptoms that my customer had included very harsh, nearly back-breaking shifts, especially from 1 to 2, but pretty much up and down the line. And he was running a 3200 stall converter. That's what came with the transmission, Yank 3200, and even at part throttle, it was just very, very jarring. So what brought the transmission in here specifically was a loss of the third and fourth gear. You noticed it started slipping and falling out of gear in fourth, and then it started to slip both in third and fourth while in drive. So what he was doing is manually shifting from manual low to 2 to 3 to 4, just to try and keep it on the road for as long as possible, babying it, doing whatever he could. But eventually it just took a giant dump. So a billet servo assembly was installed for second and fourth gear. Okay, this is a much larger servo than stock, than factory. And additionally, it appears that the Transgo HD2 shift kit was installed. So let me get this stuff out of the way, kind of see how it goes together. Okay, Transgo, we have the classic yellow spring in the fourth accumulator, and then in the HD2 shift kit, they will give you a couple of different spring combinations for the 1-2 accumulator, but it almost always consists of some variation or combination of the blue spring, the spring seat, the the larger orange spring, and then you have the option of shimming it with either no shims, 1 shim, or 2 shims, depending on how you want to mechanically calibrate the firmness of the 1-2 shift. And then this is kind of a cardinal sin, but they installed the factory plastic piston, which loves to crack, in a vehicle, or in a transmission that's supposedly intended to handle 1,000 horsepower. I don't know who built the transmission. He said that the seller gave him the name of a well-known transmission builder. If I said the name of the builder, most of you who follow this kind of thing, or either in the industry or very close to it, will know the name immediately. And I'm not going to do that because I have absolutely no proof one way or another that whoever was talking to my customer was being honest and truthful with him. For all I know, somebody in a back alley built this thing. But anyway, what I want to point out is this. So here's the spacer plates, a Transgo 4696, specifically designed for the 4L60Es from 1996 to 2006. So this plate will replace all factory spacer plates for transmissions 4L60Es produced during that era. So what I want to point out is this. So we have a 3200 stall converter, okay? Here is our 2-3 shift, okay? Here's our 1-2 shift. Okay, look how large that hole is. Okay, now the 2-3 shift, 125 thousandths, 130 thousandths for a high performance, high stall application is perfectly fine. But when you have a billet servo assembly for your second gear, you're running a 3200 stall converter in a truck. And this is going to be even more so for a lighter, say, passenger car, you know, like an F-body or, you know, Camaro or whatever. Impala, I mean, I'm here talking about a broad range of vehicles that saw 4L60Es be installed into them. You want to make sure that you're in determining your hole size and setting your hole size for your 1-2 shift in alignment with what you're doing with the servo and the accumulator. Okay, so for the 1-2 accumulator, we've got 2 shims in here and a billet second gear apply servo. These billet servos have an enormous amount of apply area relative to factory servo pistons, such as your 553s, your 554s, which are the smallest, you know, that went into some of the either 4.3 liters or some of the real light duty applications, and your 093s, which is your vet servos, and they were of course installed in your F-bodies, your vets, and you know, some of your like SUV and truck submodels. But they have like a tiny amount of apply surface area compared to the billet ones. So when you have a very large amount of apply area on a billet servo, you want to be real judicious and think, you know, about how big you want to go in that 1-2 shift, because your part throttle shifting will be really harsh if you make that 1-2 feed hole too big. And it looks to be the case here. And we have a combination of 2 thick shims in the 1-2 accumulator, really restricting movement of that piston. So it restricts accumulation, which means it's sending that much more fluid to the servo for band apply. And then on top of it, you have your piston here itself, you know, the billet piston. So I probably would have started out, if I'm doing this, right, piston assembly and 2 shims in the accumulator, HD2 and all that stuff, I'm probably starting this out with a 3200 stall converter at either 0.86 or maybe 0.93, and then, you know, kind of going from there based on how that feels. That's where I personally like to start out when it comes to either working with an HD2 or something similar, or performing similar you know, shift calibration mods mechanically within the transmission. Alright, so keep that in mind. I talk about it, you know, to some extent in my, you know, high performance valve body mods video for 4L60Es, but I wanted to touch on it here because we have kind of a live example to look at where, you know, we had a shift calibration not set up for both street and strip use. Now, if this was purely strip, or the stall was like another 1,000 RPM higher than it was, then that would probably be fine. But for, you know, what we're trying to do here, we want to be a little bit more conservative, especially on a vehicle that really isn't going to see the strip, and apparently it was intended to be a cruiser slash show truck or whatever, something that was not going to be explicitly raced, and that is what the previous owner had relayed to my customer. Alright, so let's take a look. Okay, we got our return spring assembly. Should go right there, and of course be locked in place, held in place by the snap ring. Of course it is not, so see what the clutch pack looks like. There's your piston. Nice and toasty. So you have friction steel, friction steel, friction steel, friction steel. Okay, and then flat steel, and then this is the way it was installed. At least I think it was. I'll check the footage, but I think it was installed upside down. Okay, we have what looks to be a non-standard bushing. In fact, this looks like the bushing that should be in the pump. Yes, it is. So this is a pump body bushing here. Now, this is actually not a bad mod, not a bad idea. I've never seen this before. So if you have an extra bushing, apparently it'll go there. I'll have to really vet that, check it, make sure, in fact, that's sound to do. You know, it's not like putting anything else at risk. This is the normal factory replacement bushing. Check this area in here. Sometimes can be worn, sealing ring grooves, cut, little, indentations in the bore there. It's rare. It's nothing like 4L80s where they input shaft sealing rings will cut, basically canyons into their respective sealing bores, resulting in a no forward condition, no movement in drive or anything else. Okay, 2-tap washer, no biggie. As an aside, you can rollerize the thrust surface between the front of the reverse input drum and the pump. I believe the technique is to use a 204R direct drum bushing in this location here. And what that will do is it'll actually locate the bearing right over here. It protrudes just a little bit more than the factory, 4L60 700R4 bushing does, and you eliminate that plastic washer and you put a bearing there, and you have another rollerized surface. Okay, I'm gonna replace this drum. I mean, when you see this, you don't ever want to reuse the drum. I don't see this very often. I think I've seen it a handful of other times, but that drum will go to the scrap yard. All right, let's look at the band. Okay, so this is the alto wideband. All right, smoked. It's to be expected. Okay, so you see that? The 3/4 clutch pack is welded to the forward hub in here. So you have the drum with the clutch packs. 3/4 then kind of meshes or splines onto the forward clutch hub, which is the ring gear, right? The outer surface portion of the forward ring gear, which then of course meshes with the forward planet and forward sun gear. So what has happened here is all those components and parts welded themselves to each other. And, it may be that if I can't get this out, he's looking at purchasing a whole nother core. I see this every so often, and it occurs most frequently in, cases where the vehicle or transmission was abused. A lot of burnouts, if folks are doing a lot of burnouts, which apparently this, not my customer, but the guy he bought it from was doing frequently. He was probably racing it. This is the end result, or at least potentially the end result. So when you have transmission used in a high performance application, you really need to bring it in for refresh, excuse me, on a periodic basis. Otherwise, this kind of stuff will happen. You'll start destroying hard parts, stuff will weld to other things, you'll have a case that's basically scrap metal and you won't be able to use anything. You gotta start all over. So there's no, easy way to get these things out. There's no shortcut or slick trick that I can show you. It's just basically wiggling on this thing as much as you can until you finally get it free and it's detached from whatever the hell it's welded to, and it'll come out. The drum, well, obviously, if I can get it out, I would never reuse this drum. It's done. It'll have to be replaced. Gear train is shot. It has to be replaced. By time we're done with going through all these friggin' parts, and I have no clue what the hell the rear gear train looks like. My guess is we're going to be looking for another transmission core to build up. So I'm going to try to wiggle it around a little bit, see if I can get it free, and then if I can, we'll dig further into the remains. If not, then I'll just come back, let you know, and close it out. Alright, this thing's not going to come out. I mean, I'll be here for a month of Sundays trying to, get it to come out of the case. It's welded up pretty good. This has happened, I don't want to say a lot, but I've seen it quite a few times, where the drum just is simply not going to ever come out of the case, and basically the whole thing is going to go to the scrap yard. From what I could see, we got the little bleeder valve here installed from the high rate return spring kit. I mean, you can buy that kit separately, which I typically do. I've got a couple videos out where it's being used on 4L60E or 700R4 drum buildups. It's a good kit, it's a great kit, but I almost never use the HD2 as a whole kit. The only reason I would is if a customer has already purchased it and wants me to put it in, then I'm like, all right, yeah, I'll do it. But anyway, one other mod that was made here, as you can see in the front of the snout of the input drum, there's no capsule. When you remove the little check ball capsule there, what you're doing is you're allowing for 100% unimpeded torque converter clutch apply fluid to go to that piston and apply the converter clutch. It does make for an abrupt transition into lockup. It's typically not recommended unless you are in fact doing something really high stall. This I would call a mid-grade stall. 3200 to me is middle of the road. If this was like a 5000 stall converter, then I could definitely see doing this. But then again, you're not really racing anyway in overdrive. You're always racing in direct. So whether or not this is a good mod to do is really very application and builder specific, use case specific, in my opinion anyway. So the valve body could probably be reused. I have to put it on the Sonex vac tester to see how it is, but there's fixes for the usual problems, the AFL and the torque converter clutch regulator valve. So I'm not too worried about the valve body. And it was functioning, so I know it has the ability to shift through all the gears and all that good stuff. The Super Hold servo, this particular variant is from Superior Technologies. Okay, Sonex makes one. Either or, whatever you want to use. The main thing is that when you use a Super Hold servo, whether it's for just fourth gear, whether it's just for second gear, whether it's for both, you just want to make sure that you calibrate your feed hole sizes and your exhaust ports. In the case of the 2.3, appropriately based on the size of the servo you're using, especially the second gear servo. As I mentioned earlier, you go too big on the hole size for a billet servo like this, and you're already shimming the 1.2 accumulator. You really want to be running something like a 4500 stall converter, 4000 stall converter, somewhere in that neighborhood to start if you're going to do stuff like that. Because 3200 stall, at least in my experience from all the all of these I've built for performance, that is it's a little too much at part throttle for shifting. It's not comfortable. What else? Spacer plate. Otherwise, the spacer plate's fine. It doesn't appear to be bent, so it could be used for like another build where somebody's running like a 44 to 5000 stall converter or something like that. So. And I know folks talk about peening the holes so you can shrink them back down. I typically don't do that. If I get a plate like this in, I'll just, I'll stick it in the drawer and reserve it for another build. I'll write on it, high stall, 4500 plus or something like that. All right, that's the deal with this transmission. Like I said, didn't plan on filming, but I wanted to, kind of showcase something that's a little different, where I've touched upon some of the specific topics like feed hole sizes and or, performance modifications to kind of show you the other side of things, i.e., what could go wrong if, certain things either are not done correctly or if the vehicle and the transmission is just straight up abused. And I have a feeling, we're kind of seeing a little bit of both. I mean, this bearing's shot. So, incidentally, when I pulled pulled on the input shaft to try and gauge end play. I mean, there was basically zero end play, which, you know, by hand, that doesn't actually mean anything because you're not going to be able to feel anything less than about 15 thousandths. You know, you go lower than 15 thousandths, then you're not going to be able to feel that, especially on a transmission that's full of fluid. So, but anyway, that's the video. Hope, as you see, that's all messed up. Yeah, I hope it was entertaining, at least, if nothing else, and maybe a little bit informative. I mean, if you're thinking about a high-performance build, this will give you yet another perspective to consider when putting together your plan and kind of determining how you want to build up your 4L60E or 700R4 transmission. All right, hope to see you on the next video. You know, a lot to look forward to. We're going to be doing more teardown inspections and all that good stuff. If anything else comes out of this, like, say, the forward drum, I'll put a supplementary video up to kind of show you the carnage inside the drum. You know, a lot of interesting, interesting things can be seen when we have, you know, cases where things are welded together. So that's it. Have a great rest of your day or evening. And as always, thank you so much for watching.